Hello, hello, hello. How are we all doing? This is Recap Part 4, and we've got the wonderful Billie PN back in the studio. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm back again, like that rash you thought you got rid of. Thanks for having me, man. Really happy to be here.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. How's things? Are you doing well this week?
Yes, another week flies by and much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just plodding on. I'm hoping that we all get to go back to our normal lives and drink pints in the pub soon.
Don't we all?
How are you?
I'm good, you know. I think that's... Someone was asking me the other day, like, what is the main thing you miss? And honestly, it's pints in a pub.
Oh,
Give me a cold, refreshing craft IPA ale and a packet of sweet and sour crisps. Not sweet and sour crisps, sweet chili crisps. Give me it now.
Oh, you hipster with your ale. Yeah, the lovely sunny weekend was sort of brought around. It was a dark twist to have to sip a can of Stella that was slowly going warm. I would have much rather have been in a pub in the river. But we move.
Yeah.
We're here. We're ready for another podcast. I'm so excited.
We are. Yeah, we are. And I'm so excited about this because, well, look, first of all, we're starting off with you, but let's just go through the lineup that we've got. We've got Billie PN, who is right now with us on the
she sounds
podcast
amazing.
herself. She does. Do you know what? I think she's great. And we've got Danny Martin, Mr. Melise, and then finally Poet Curious. So 4 poems
Awesome.
here from this. The reason why there aren't 5 is because episode 20 was perfectly aligned with the whole crisis of getting people down. It just couldn't really happen. Like I had loads of people booked in. I had about 3, and then I got ill once, so I cancelled, and then they would get ill, so it didn't happen. So instead, we
Cruel
actually
fate.
put out a live episode, which was recorded with Off the Chest. So that was episode 20. But we've got 15 to 19. And the first poem we're going to go over is by yours bloody truly.
Oh my
So-
goodness, what an honour.
Yeah, your time to shine.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this piece, which is called Anxious.
It's called Anxious, yeah. It's just a piece that I wrote in response to all of my brain fog, and I think it's there's so much to say about our mental health and poetry, and a lot of people explore it. And I haven't done a huge amount of that, but this was my sort of dipping my toe into the water of it, and I did really enjoy writing it. As much as it's sort of painful to think about, what is wrong with my head and why do I struggle with certain things or so on and so forth. I found it really nice to introspect and write. So yeah, and look, I'm amazing, I'm awesome. It's going to be great to review myself because I give myself 10 out of 10 immediately.
10 out of 10. Yeah. I would have gone with 9, but that's fine.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's like an arrow to my heart, and I know you don't mean it, so...
I don't. No, do you know what? I think this is a really great piece, and I remember this was the first one you did out of the 3 you did on the show, and it was a great way to kick things off. Like, it was great. It was cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
No, you're more than welcome. And look, I think we should hear it. That's what we should do right now. So the first poem that we're going to be hearing in the part 4 of this recap episode is with the wonderful co-host herself, Billie PN, and it's called Anxious.
These days I collect streaks on the Calm app, not Snapchat. I prescribe meditation like medication for the soul because that medication they prescribe me feels like a cold bat to the side of my skull. The hole this disease leaves in my head feels like a vortex. I get stressed, I get vexed, like who's next and what's next, and get up and get dressed. You can't stay in this cold bed all weekend. You're lazy. You're worthless. You're nothing. You deserve this. In this world of self-serving and self-earning and self-yearning, it is hard not to feel like you are not self-worthy. It's like I've got this disease where I've got overactive empathy in a world run by narcissists, and I would know I've got a psychology degree. Those of us who love true and love deeply aren't the fools. Love, meet me halfway. I am sick of being cool. I am sick of pretending that I like house music. The same beat just loops around and I can't dance to it. I am sick of working when I don't feel like it. I am sick of pretending that I don't need kindness. Overthinking these problems, I've got analysis paralysis. This canister of pressure stops me from getting a level handle on this, and I overthink my problems till inaction leaves me powerless when all I really need is just a second to try and process this. Paradigm of mine leaves me blind sometimes. I can't see beyond my own eyes. Sometimes I really believe my own lies. Sometimes I pay big to fake a high. Sometimes I can't feel beyond my lows. Sometimes it's like I can't feel my toes. Oh, fuck. I am numb. It starts in my extremities. My hands start to buzz and then go dead completely. Loud noises scare me. Cars can't go too fast. I put my fingers in my ears when freight trains go past. I can't hoover on my own. I can't blow dry my hair. I definitely can't contemplate the gapingly transient nature of human existence. I can't drink caffeine anymore. Having to face the grind whilst the richness of my essence is crushed out of me into a bitter black broth is too much for my soul to endure. I've got no patience these days. So I guess I'm better off than the NHS, but if you were to take an X-ray of my chest, you would find a swarm of bees where my heart should have stayed. I failed to train my mind. Instead, it just loops round and round. Call me the circle line, and it's fine. I'm fine. Honestly, I am fine. It's just these fake smiles are always running a delayed service, so they seem to reach my face just a minute too late. I'm trying. Heart pounds in my chest. Sweat beads on my head. They say to chase dreams is to hustle, but I just cannot fucking sleep. I'm tired. But it's not that deep. Anyway, mate, enough about me. How are you?
So there we go. That was Billie PN, yours truly, with Anxious. Thank you for performing that again, somewhat on Word Spoken, in a way. It's a wonderful piece, and
Thanks,
I really resonate with it. I think lots of people will, and you perform it really well. You really.
Thank you very much.
You really do. What is it like listening back to a piece like that?
So I really struggled hearing myself back, and it was something I was thinking about when I came on the podcast, and I always think about when I see recordings of me performing, is that I'm a nitpicker. I'm a Virgo. I'm very, very anal about these things. I just go through and I'm like, oh, I wish I had, and my inflection there and blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a mixture of emotions when I listen back, but especially one that's a bit more emotional. I maybe I give myself a bit more leeway. I'm like, wow, I was emotional when I was performing that. That's fine. You can do whatever you want, Bill. Like, you were feeling it. So yeah, it's sort of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think like how, as a like proportion of all the pieces you write, I feel like that one is quite unique. That's like not in the majority of cases for it kind of being a bit of a different style, perhaps, compared to your rest of your stuff. So do you find it a bit more intense performing that kind of stuff in a live setting?
I think it sort of just feels so much like my own, even though it's really different to other stuff that I've written, that it sort of just becomes part of I know how to perform this poem now. Yeah. And it's in the catalogue or whatever, and it feels like mine. But what I struggle with is like brand new stuff that I take to a night or whatever to feel it out. And because I don't have the same confidence in the voice. Do you ever find that when it's a brand new piece?
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're like, oh, I don't know when people are gonna, should I pause here or should I not? And what if nobody laughs? Or, that's what I find is like the more difficult part of performing a poem rather than,
No, I think you're right. I think speaking of my kind of point of view, I find for me it takes a couple of times doing it live for me to really like it. The first time I perform something new live, it's always the worst time I've ever performed it.
Oh, 100%. Do you know what I mean?
It just never goes well.
I have died on stage. The first time I performed Anxious was at Chocolate Poetry Club. Again, another plug. Sponsorship pending. And I just bombed in like a way that I hadn't really before, because I had no confidence in my. I think I'd written it because I was anxious and I was looking into. So that's probably had a huge part to play.
It's probably why you called it Anxious.
Probably why I called it Anxious. And then I took it to the stage and I was anxious and I just was not myself and like messed up all of my lines and had a bit of paper and I was like really and it just was so unlike me, and it was because I was like I wasn't backing myself in the way that I usually do. So yeah, that was a massive learning curve actually, that first performance of that poem. And I think that's why maybe I'm so warm about it now, because it feels more like home. I've sort of wriggled into it and I enjoy performing it a lot now.
It is, yeah. I think we can often be our own worst enemy when it comes to
100%.
writing and performing. Like you kind of said there, that you nitpick for your work, and when you listen back to it, I mean, I'm certainly someone that kind of does that.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a pause too long or too short, or you don't quite pronounce a word or whatever, it's really, really annoying, isn't it?
100%. And time moves really. Do you ever find that time moves really slowly when you're on stage? So something that feels like you've paused for huge effect, you look back and it was like, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
It's
that's 100%
insane
right.
how your brain just sort of slows down a gear when you're performing to sort of that adrenaline and the rush of it all. It means it's a completely different experience for you than it is for the people watching. It's very bizarre.
That is really true. That point you make of when you pause and it feels like eternity, and then you listen back and it was actually quite quick. You could have been a bit slower, and
there was nothing wrong.
When you're up on stage and you feel perhaps some nerves coming in or that kind of self-doubt kicking in, how does your reaction play out? Like what are the things which you find quite, like, do you have to kind of cope with or push down whilst you're on stage?
Yeah, I get a lot of nerves beforehand. I'm a nightmare. Before I go on any night, it's like not worth talking to me, because I just sit there like head in hands, like imposter syndrome. I don't know the words. And when I get on, I think most of the time, 99% of the time, I sort of almost, once you're on, it's like, well, I'm here now. So what's going to happen is going to happen. And I think if you give yourself the time, personally for me anyway, if I give myself the time whilst I'm on there to think, you don't know the next part, or the uncertainty creeps in, that's when I lose it. When I let the other voice come in, because I'm not giving all of it into the poem, which I think is probably why I perform so much when I'm there, is because I'm sort of putting myself really in the shoes of the poem. And it sort of like allows me to have the blinkers on that mean that I don't get that sort of like external but very internal voice sort of like getting in the way. Yeah.
I think everyone does have to kind of block that out, and some people perhaps find it a bit easier than others. But yeah, it's certainly something that you don't look at all like when you're performing live. Like you don't see it in the poem.
It's very it's a choice that I make. Just smile. No, it's not. And I tell you what else really makes a difference is a warm audience, because we're all human beings, and people fluff their lines and people lose their confidence, or they get on stage and they're not feeling it anymore. And the difference in an audience that are there and are with you and supportive. You know, I've been to nights where I've stumbled on a line and everyone just click, click, click. You got this. Take it back. Blah blah. You know, and it can be. You see it. It's not just for one person, or it's for every single person. It's that supportiveness that really drives you through to the end. You know,
you're right.
And makes it. I think once you start to think this is a fuck up and everyone hates me, then of course your whole body language changes and you can't get it out. Whereas if everyone's like, yeah, we're so excited to hear what's gonna come. Like whenever you're ready, babe. But then you're like, oh, I got this. This is going to be great. No,
you're right. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next poet that we had on Word Spoken, and that is the beautifully talented Danny Martin.
What a guy.
Do you know what? This is, again, I met him, guess where? At Chocolate Poetry Club. But when I met him, he had kind of he had done a bit of spoken word live, and his first kind of thing that he did live ended up being something which was really successful. He went up with BBC Words First, and really kind of smashed it on his first go. And then he had a bit of a break from it. And I think I kind of saw him when he was getting back into it all. And he was a performer on the night which just jumped off the lineup for me. Like, I thought he was brilliant.
He's a real performer, and definitely always stands out. And whenever I see him in a show, he's got a really unique voice. Yes,
he does. And what I quite like about him is his tone is really like raw and
the huskiness of
husky. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think we should just hear it, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat more about him afterwards. So this is Danny Martin with Influencers Living Our Dreams.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Nowadays there is no such thing as mystery. There is only ever internet browser history. Everything is clocked between the Insta and Snapchat story. Forget them fame fables your dad told you, they no longer exist. Forget his past glories, because it'll all be logged in videos and pics on his Facebook page. And if it isn't, then did it even happen? Me and your mum, we met in a bar, exchanged nowadays. For me and your mum, we met through having 4 bars of signal strength. I now pronounce you husband and Wi-Fi. Forget nighttime antics, because we've got Netflix. And we wonder why the younger generations find it so hard to mix when they won't dare go outside or go camping because you can't get 4G in the sticks. And now they just stick to sticking inside on their USB and joysticks. I hope they grow out of that by the age they reach the Amazon Prime. Swipe left, people have just become so disposable. Swipe left into that virtual black hole. Swipe left on the potential one, because there's plenty more where that came from, and you won't have to worry about them, because you can lose as many people in your life as long as you don't lose your phone. I still remember my first pack code. Even in relationships, they never seem to last, because he was too busy playing games. That's why he never ticked all of his Xboxes, because he was too busy playing games on his Xbox, and he forgot about her the way FIFA forgot about career mode. And she was just too busy to notice, because she was focusing on her Instagram career though. Instagram followers over actual friends, like in this virtual reality we live in. Who actually needs them? If I'm having any problems, I can just post an emotional selfie to FB, and someone that doesn't even know me will tell me that they're here for me, babes. I'll reply saying I'll PM you later, just to add to the mystique. We put a price on fame over happiness, like fake breasts and an enhanced arse are worth getting on the bus to work for another few years instead of driving that new car, because you've got 6,000 followers now and 600 likes on your latest picture, from people as close as your BFFs to places as far as Qatar, and people up in your mentions telling you you're spectacular, and you're like, rah. Use my discount code for pretty little thing. Remember, kids, no one's ugly, they're just poor. But have no fear, Fiat 500 Twitter, because we can give you all these Kardashian treatments and more. And don't worry about being riddled in debt, because you have up to 10 years to pay for it until your veneers fall off and you need a new set. But then we've got another finance deal to replace it. That's nowadays life cycles, no Bibles, just Heat magazine, good lighting, and a phone case that doubles back as a charger. Fresh trim. Cheat on your girl every weekend, but you can never cheat on your barber. That's a fresh fade, filtered face. Buy bottles with your monthly pay just to get laid in your mum's flat. But don't worry about her being there, because someone's got to pay for your leaky taps, and she can't charge you rent when you want to get white girl wasted off for all of that. And it seems influencers live in our dreams. The people highest up give us the lowest self-esteem. See, that's peer pressure for that hill figure sweater. Insta is where them fake ballers at. They make us hate ourselves and love their wealth, taking Photoshop mirror selfies that don't reflect themselves. That's why we can't even go to the grocery store without picking up a chocolate bar and feeling insecure, and that's why we're dealing with some issues that you can't believe. Social media is a facade, it's all make-believe. They say a picture says 1,000 words, but there's 1,000 words behind every picture that they don't want you to see.
There's 1,000 words behind every picture that you don't want them to see. That's great, isn't it?
So good, isn't it? Wow.
It's a really amazing poem. Like, I love the line where he kind of says, I now pronounce you husband and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, his wordplay in it is so smart, man.
It's really good.
He's taken great pains to make sure that it's clever, but also really accessible and really like interesting. And yeah, I really like that piece a lot.
Yeah. One of the things I like remember him kind of speaking about on the show, and just when I've had conversations with him, is that he feels that kind of from his background, right? All of his friends and his family, like, they're not in the creative world at all. His parents don't really understand what spoken word is. He feels like it was something that was just so out of the world in which he was kind of brought up in. So what I really love about him is he's clearly got a talent for it. He's really good at it. And he kind of puts that all to one side and proves that it really, like, poetry is accessible and open to anyone. Like, it really doesn't matter, like, where you're from, who you're, like, what kind of upbringing you have, right? Everyone's got a voice. And whether or not your friends understand what the fuck you're doing, like blabbering away on a microphone or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. He's a really cool guy, and I think what really struck me about your conversation with him was like his talking about how he sort of compares himself all the time to everybody, and how he's trying to like get away from that comparison being sort of like thieving all of your joy. I mean, it's something I'm so guilty of, and it really stuck with me what he was saying about it, just to try and like moving away from that and having your own voice and finding your individuality. Yeah, it was really good chat.
No, he's definitely a kind of one to watch out for. He was also on the Treble Tongues open mic slam lineup. Awesome. He did really well. Do you know what he did? His poem,
the poem in the mirror.
Mirror Match. Was it called Mirror Match? Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. That was so good. It was incredible. That was performance. It was amazing.
Because he basically lined up his phone, right, to point at the mirror and then performed it through the mirror, and the whole concept of
through to the camera,
of the kind of piece is like him doing a battle rap against himself. It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that bit in 8 Mile where Slim Shady is like, what more can you say about me? Like, you can't battle rap me now. Because said it all. It was that, but it was so good.
Yeah, because he ends it with that quote from 8 Mile. Yeah, I really urge people to go and like find that piece online somewhere, because it's great. Mirror Match.
I think it's on his Instagram.
Yeah, it is fire. So yeah, that is the wonderful Danny Martin. So look, next up we had a guy who goes by the name of Mr. Melise. Now,
yes,
it was a pleasure having this guy on. Have you seen him live yourself?
Yeah. I've seen him.
Where did you see him?
Times. I saw him. The most memorable one was the first time I saw him, which was Mind Over Matter in Brixton at the Ritzy.
Yeah.
And
did you do Knife Sentence?
Did Knife Sentence. Yeah, and it was just one of those ones. I think I read recently, the measure of a poem is the silence that it leaves after it, and that the silence after that is just insane. Everyone is just taking it in still, like, as the words really, really resonate and hit home. And I think it's that awesome mix of activism and poetry. Sorry, I cut you off, but yeah.
No, go. You're right. I think it is. I think there's so much passion in his words, and they have so much weight. Lots of people, I think, including myself, end up writing about myself, and that can be like enjoyable for some people because you're being open and honest. But when you marry the two things of having words which have a big impact, and then by performing them in a really engaging and clever way, that little combo is like, that's a sweet spot, isn't it?
It's a sweet spot, and it's like hearing all of the awesome stuff he's doing in the community that he's from with young men, and and encouraging them to move into creativity rather than that sort of aimless teenage thing that a lot of people fall victim to when they're young. I think it's just awesome, and the way that he presents his poetry, it's not pretentious. It's not, I'm your older, I'm your mentor and here's what I have to say about it. It's not patronizing. It's just really, really powerful and really emotive, and I think that's he's an awesome voice to add to the scene. Yeah, no,
he is. And so he was for people that don't know who he is, he was a MC for a number of years under the name Champagne Bubbler. Champagne Bubbler. Yeah. So I wish I could have seen him live, and then, do you know what I mean? Now I know him, I wish I would have seen him upstage.
Been in Kavos back in day, Champagne Bubbler. Yeah, it would have been good.
But what that kind of means is he knows how to project his voice, and he knows, like, he's just got such a cool tone and sounds to his performance. And he's obviously been in the music industry for a while, so he puts pretty much everything to music. As we spoke about last week, that can in some cases really add a lot to your piece, and I think in his case, I mean, they just perfectly line up.
Yeah, it's a real testament to his skill in both poetry and music, that they are these sort of, separately they're amazing. The track is amazing on its own. The words are amazing. They come together, and it's just this awesome collaboration between the two.
Yeah, so just so people are aware, that knife crime piece is called Knife Sentence. It's up on YouTube with the words at Word Spoken Podcast. And yeah, he basically, that was the first piece he wrote as spoken word. And he then set up pretty much off the back of it a charity called Knife Crime Victim Support. They have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and so on. So make sure you go and follow. And yeah, he essentially helps mentor young people who are at risk of getting involved with gangs, and helps them through workshops, creative workshops, to create some music, do some poetry, some spoken word, some rap. And he just makes a real difference.
Grassroots activism, proper going into your community and making a difference with the people that need your help and support and guidance. Like, it is the dictionary definition of a activist and a poet, and I love it. I love it.
It is. So look, the poem we're going to hear is called Flowers Through Concrete. And this is a bit of a different vibe to the Knife Sentence piece. This is a kind of like love piece. But it's great with some lovely music behind.
Lovely.
So let's jump on and hear it, shall we? This is Mr. Melise with Flowers Through Concrete.
You know, sometimes when you're walking along a path and you might randomly see some flowers amongst grass seemingly growing straight through the concrete. Well, that's like you and me. Because somebody might just walk past and not necessarily appreciate the beauty or understand what we went through just to be here. When we met, it was like we realized we were planted in the same space for a reason. You've been trying to climb through hard times, and I think you said you had a feeling that my story wasn't much different. The more we talked, the more we gave each other pieces of us. And in order to move forward, we needed to make peace with our past. There were times when I'd lift you on my shoulders and try to leapfrog over our barriers, not knowing what the future holds or where the wind would carry us. But still, we fell head over heels through meadows and fields. I'm not sure when, but we agreed to let go and build. And you could talk to me about all your insecurities, lay on my chest and fall asleep with my loyalty. Honestly, I had trust issues then, but I promised you all of me. Anyway, I rate the way we can rave till the next day, or just stay in sometimes, watch films and get a takeaway. Totally entangled, babe. Away from our enemies, playful but penniless, just making our memories. Us against the world, and nobody could F with this. Remember this. When I'm sitting on your kitchen side and you tiptoed to get a kiss. Now that's ultra cute. I don't know what it is, but I feel proud when I'm holding you. And I hope you're proud too, going out with an older dude. But age is nothing but a number. I'll be flirty forever. We can always mess about and be nerdy together. Talking for hours about space and religion, even though your opinion is majorly different. You'd get angry when I talked and get mad when I didn't. So I called you a brat, because with you there's no winning. Like when you asked me to choose out of 5 pairs of shoes, and I'd say the black ones, so you'd wear the blue. But that's just you. And that's just me trying to help with your heals. My way of saying thank you, because you helped me to heal. You see that right there? Yeah, I felt it for real. Which is why when your eyes are wide shut and the stars are luminous, I whisper in your ear that you're the center of my universe. Because you mean more to me than just a Pandora bracelet. We've laughed and we've cried, we've handled it, we've faced it. So today is your day. Go and choose your best dress. We'll go out and celebrate a prince with his princess. And we'll walk along the path where the grass and the flowers grew. And I'll turn around and say, P.S. I love you.
So that was Mr. Melise with Flowers Through Concrete, and that was just a wonderful piece, wasn't it?
Really lovely piece, like an ode, like an old school ode to someone that you love. It was really, really nice.
Yeah. I like the way there's kind of lots of references in there, which just are very like day-to-day things, right? But when he tells it in that way, with that music behind it, it just adds so much meaning to
the beauty in the simple and the normal and everything that we all, take for granted.
Yeah, and I think as well what he demonstrates quite well there is when it comes to writing, we're talking of like the beauty in the simple, and so like when you write concisely and simply in a way that to the listeners very easy to understand and very image to kind of very easy to build up that image that you were trying to create. Like, weirdly, it's actually quite hard to do that well. And I think in that piece, he does that very well, doesn't he?
He does it beautifully. It's a really lovely piece.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you to Mr. Melise. He's also, by the way, he's got an EP out, which if you want to find the link straight to it, then head to the @Wordspoken podcast link tree, which is a link in the bio on the Instagram page. And why you want to do that is because some of the money raised from people downloading that EP, which is a great EP, but is going to help the NHS out in this kind of troublesome time. So yeah, massive shout out to him.
Big shout out to Mr. Melise. Good for him.
And also talking of the NHS, we haven't brought this up yet.
Speaking of the NHS, it's right here.
We haven't kind of given your T-shirt a mention.
I know.
Look at that.
I know. There it is in all its glory.
That's a wonderful piece of work. Now, that is by the fantastic Black Score.
It is. I feel like the NHS greatly loved but underfunded. Love it. Yeah, it's by Black Score, who is an amazing poet and also a designer. So he has his own line of clothes. And yeah, he's basically raising money. Although the NHS is not a charity, very much not a charity, and it will need all of our support once this is all over to make sure it stays that way. It is, he's fundraising for the NHS whilst all this is going down. So the proceeds of the T-shirt go to that. So go over and grab one.
Make sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he's got. I like follow him on Instagram, of course, and he always puts up very quite funny, topical pieces, some images. He's very good at blending brand logos to make something else.
It's a lot of satire and pointing the finger at the man, which we love.
The system.
Yeah.
So that's Black Score, and that was Mr. Melise. So the last and final poet and poem that we're going to hear of season 1 in these recap episodes is Poet Curious.
Yes, the wonderful Poet Curious.
The wonderful Poet Curious. Now, again, as we kind of mentioned last week with Tyrone Lewis, this is someone that's been in the scene a while. And that brings with him, as a result of that, a lot of experience and a lot of know-how and a lot of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And it was something that really jumped out at me when we were recording the episode. He had a lot to say.
It was a really, really good episode. Another one of those where you sort of are trying to furiously take notes the whole time to see how someone else has made the magic. But I thought he had some really interesting points that were quite objective about the scene, talking about, sometimes that criticism that we sort of all... we're not, we maybe lack a bit of criticism for each other and ourselves and pushing ourselves to be better and be amazing. I found that really interesting and, definitely was food for thought.
That is a really good point. I think that was something which hadn't come up really on the show yet. And it did kind of get me thinking is, as we've mentioned a lot on the show and also in this episode, that the poetry scene is a very supportive one.
Yes,
right?
So supportive.
And that's definitely one of its strengths. There's no doubt about that. But I guess potentially one of the downsides to that is we lack potentially a bit of criticism, which would egg everyone to kind of always make sure they're performing their best and maybe push everyone to a higher standard. Maybe that's something that, we as a scene could work on. It's quite hard though, because
it's hard, and I think this is the thing. Chris is Poet Curious is the nicest guy. He runs Rise Up with Prestige Carla, and they are just the most warm, lovely duo on the scene. They're so supportive and nurturing and encouraging, and there is so much room for that in the scene, and people really appreciate it. But I think what Poet Curious was talking about, getting that edge and becoming a better artist, definitely requires criticism. It definitely requires people to look at your work with a more scrutinous eye, so that you can grow and craft and get better. Otherwise you just write the same poems over and over again. And
no, you're right. It's something we all kind of have to think about and do. So let's I think we should hear the last poem that we're going to get from Poet Curious. So this is a wonderful piece. He wrote this it was after reading, I can't remember the name of the poem, but it's they went to sea in a ship. They went to sea in a ship. It's like a children's poem. Why can't I remember it? Anyway, that. And it's a marvelous piece. He kind of likes to kind of bring current world issues into the same rhyming scheme and the same cadence as that original piece. And it's a wonderful piece. It's called To Sea, and this is Poet Curious. Enjoy.
They went to sea in a ship, they did. In a ship they went to sea. Inspired by all that their friends would say at the crack of dawn on a stormy day, with their kids they fled to sea. They saved for months, a few £1,000s. A couple pulled out and a few more were drowned, but the rest called aloud, we had no choice. Oppression has taken our rights and our voice, and our government's all talking spin. Far and few are the lands where the refugees live. The things they've seen and the things they knew meant they went to sea just to live. Now they sailed across seas in a truck, they did, in a truck that drove so fast. With only a couple survivors' tales, the blindest faith and the memory of wailing mothers whose sons didn't last. And they spend their nights in monoxide haze, and each of them says, how many more days, though I feel so rough and this voyage be longer, hope that my dad wasn't rash nor wrong, though he cried all the way in the car. Far and few are the lands where the refugees live. Queasy green and their hands cold blue, but they went to sea just to live. Now the memories of slaughter bore deep in, 'cause slaughters bore deep in. So to keep themselves sane, they sang and drank in between borders of distant lands, and they shiver for more than the cold. All nights and days became as one, with thoughts of home and days of fun, before the storm, before the gun, before the last hug from their mum in the shade of the mountains brown. Far and few are the lands where the refugees live. They head for green and pastures new, but they went to sea just to live. Now they sailed to the western seas, of course, to lands that are famed for their riches, and then work long days for very low pay, and when certain men come, they have to hide away from their life of dishes and sieves. No employee rights, though many didn't need them, 'cause working your arse off to some people's freedom, and after a meal and a shave of a razor, the rest gets wrapped in a pinky paper and sent in a package back home. Far and few are the lands where the refugees live. Now their beds are clean, and their shoes are new, and they feel like they're starting to live. And in 20 years they might go back, in 20 years or more. It all depends on how they've grown, in a land without family, away from the home and the state of the homeland too. Though most won't go back. If they built up a life, with a job and some kids, a house and a wife, they'll live as your neighbour, moan about rain, the queues for the doctor, the price of the train, and eventually the immigrants too. It's ironic, but it's true. 'Cause far and few are the lands where the refugees live. They're just like me, and they're just like you, and they have the same rights to live.
So there we go. That was Poet Curious with
What a
wonderful
poem.
to see. And, you know, he was I feel like we might as well mention this as well. Before the lockdown, he was planning this thing called Free Write Fridays, which I hope will be kicking off after all this happens. And what a shame it couldn't have happened. The idea...
Yeah, it sounds like it would have been really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like a really fun time.
Like the idea behind it was to kind of have a Friday night where there's an open mic, there's a couple of workshops, and also afterwards it's like a bit of a bar and a bit of a drink evening, you know, like a night out kind of thing on a Friday night.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys check that out, Free Write Fridays, when it's back up and running. So look, Billie, that's us come to a close.
That's been a wild ride.
We've gone
such amazing poems.
Yeah, we've gone through episodes 10 to 19 from last week and this week, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you about all of these awesome artists.
Just sit down and have a natter about all things spoken word. And I think, you know, I wish everyone that's listening well during this weird time. Hopefully things are starting to relax, you know, by the time this kind of is out.
Relax in a way that keeps everybody safe and everyone stays well and healthy and makes great decisions. All of our love to everybody listening.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think all that's left to do is to say thank you very much, Billie, for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you, Henry, for hosting the world's best spoken word podcast.
The world's best.
Yeah, it's been the world's best spoken
There
word
aren't that many to
podcast.
choose
Thank you
from, to
very
be
much.
honest. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much, Billie, and we will see everyone next week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.